welcome back to an episode of Anecdotal Adventures Reads Worm. This is episode 2, and we are going into the next arc of Worm, Insinuation. So, to sort of summarize our experience with the first arc, we loved it so much that we're doing the second arc immediately after.
Mostly to prevent me from reading ahead without being here.
And I'm so excited to jump into it. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ashley, and this is my co-host.
My name is Cassidy.
And, let's just get into Worm. I'm so excited to read more Worm. I kind of forgot just how utterly brilliantly Wildbow made his world and made this piece of art. Any thoughts, Cassidy, or just...
It is so, it is definitely one of those things that draws you in. And you definitely talked about how you, when you originally read the series, did it all in one night.
Yeah,
so,
Wildbow, you are responsible for a night of which nothing was done but reading your work. I hope that makes
both
you
a blessing
feel proud.
and a curse.
I hope that makes you feel proud. I definitely learned nothing in school that day. Because it was just, can I read more Worm? Can I get away with it? Can I get away with it? Can I read more Worm?
Sometimes it's worth it, though. And you glean more from a story like this than you do from what you're learning in chemistry.
Yeah, but I also think that there is going to be an advantage for slowing down and reading Worm at a not breakneck pace and having someone to talk to about it. But enough about that. Let's get right into it. We will be back after we have read Arc 2, Insinuation. See you guys then. Hello and welcome back. We just completed Arc 2 of Worm. So let's just hop right into it. What were your overall impressions of this arc?
There was a lot of iffy stuff. It was definitely darker than the first one.
Yeah, so in this arc, we see Taylor in the first chapter going to the Parahumans Online wiki page to Google the supervillains she just met, and we'll learn later on in the arc that their names are the Undersiders. She learns the most about Rachel, otherwise known as Bitch, and her powers and her criminal past, her growing up in the foster system, and her being homeless for most of her criminal career until she joined up with this group. Violent, there's a little warning tag under her. If I had to pin one of the Undersiders as someone who has probably murdered someone before, Rachel, I think, might take number 1 on that list because she's very prone and very quick to violence.
Yeah, and she definitely seems like the damage dealer of the group. So.
Yes, they say multiple times that they need Rachel because she's the powerhouse. All the rest of their powers we see are not quite as broadly offensive. Gru or as we learn later, Brian has darkness generation that can make people have sensory deprivation as well on top of it, and can apparently mess with radio signals and dampen radiation. Which he only learns that thanks to Tattletale. What was her name again? Liz?
Lisa.
Lisa. I knew it started with an L. It's getting a little late during our recording here, at least for me. We learned that for Lisa's power, because, oh boy, do we want to talk about Lisa's power for 20 minutes? Because I want to talk about Lisa's power for such a long time.
I do too. Oh my god. It is so crazy.
It's an information gathering power that pretty much, if Lisa might be able to get that information to herself, whether by hacking or hard work or turning her head to look at a clock or by reading body language, her power just fills in the blank for her. And it's here, take it anyway.
Yeah, and it said that if she just needs a little starting piece, but then as information starts coming to her, she has pieces
flows,
that
which
lets
makes
her just keep going.
They've already set up the cat and mouse game, because in this arc, Tattletale invited Bug, Taylor's sort of hastily made alias, to join or to meet up with the Undersiders, who give her $2,000 in cash for help, and as the first payment as her membership fee as part of the Undersiders, which throughout the arc she officially agreed to join. But we see Tattletale use her powers in many instances throughout the range of this, and all are terrifying and set up this huge game of cat and mouse. She's definitely the biggest threat to Taylor, who joins the Undersiders under the airs that she's infiltrating them.
Which I have a sneaking suspicion she's going to enjoy their company far more than she intended.
Taylor is in desperate need of companionship. She's lonely, and these people are friends, and Rachel are fairly nice to her, which she is unusual. Lisa even gives her a half hug, and Taylor's like, this felt way better than I thought it would. I needed a hug from someone who wasn't my dad, and I've needed it for a while.
And I have a sneaking suspicion that, actually, I don't know, because the others still don't like Rachel, but I'm really hoping she comes around. Because I want to see the other side of that character.
Since I know what happened, I'd love to start a prediction segment where you predict what's going to happen. As one of your predictions, Rachel comes around to the power of friendship.
I can't say it's a prediction, but it's definitely a hope. I really hope she does.
Hopes and predictions, then. Just anything you think might happen in the future of this book.
Hopes and predictions. And I already ship Taylor and Brian. I already ship it.
Is it better than the cheesy YA romances that you were dishing on?
I mean, it's a little bit better, but I don't know. Of course, it's the first guy that showed Taylor positive attention, so I'm probably just like,
the fundamental knowledge that she's developing this relationship, and is whether it evolves into anything romantic or not, she's clearly eyeing him up. She describes him in a different way than she describes Alec.
Yeah, she's like, Alec's pretty, I guess. And then she was like, well, Brian, that's a man face.
This is a guy that works out. It could not. It is very much a subconscious thing. That Taylor is narration going on.
Yeah,
there.
At least she knows her own type, because she was like, I don't usually go for pretty boys like Leonardo DiCaprio.
And we do get the real names, or the names that at least they give Taylor throughout this chapter. But going back to Taylor looking people up on the Parahumans wiki, which I found hilarious. Also,
it was exactly what you wanted.
When she looked up Gru, she found information on his power, and we find out later that Gru edited his own wiki, which is so smart.
It's exactly what I would be doing. I would have been the one making a wiki for the bug girl.
She finds a stub article on Tattletale and literally nothing at all on Regent. Which I think is an interesting display, because Rachel, she gets the most, then Gru, then Tattletale, then Regent. And moving on to Regent, we find out that his powers is nerve manipulation, that he can make a muscle spasm, which imagine in fights, right? Imagine actually just all of them in a fight together. You have 3 huge dogs from Rachel who are probably hidden in a cloud of darkness. And
someone who can tell your next move.
And Lisa's feeding them information, feeding whatever your superpower is, they know it already. They know the weakness to that superpower, and they know anything you're doing. And then Alec or Regent is messing, you pick up a gun to shoot it. Oh no, you don't actually. You drop the gun. That's what you do. Or you're flying. Nope, you're on the ground. Actually, you lost your sense of balance. Sorry. Into a pit of sensory depriving darkness where you lose all sense of what is up and what is down.
And then are attacked by 3 monster dogs.
And now surrounded by bugs.
Yeah.
I read somewhere in my time that all the Undersiders' powers are sort of based on fears of some sort. losing control of your body, the dark, losing your secrets, bugs, big scary animals that want to murder you. And we also get a better look, I think, at some of Wildbow's abilities in creating unique and interesting powers. Because, I mean, Taylor is not that impressed by Regent's ability. She's completely scared by Tattletale's ability. She's kind of neutral on Gru's or Brian's, and I think
she's
that's
like,
interesting
okay.
because I think all of them may not seem that useful apart, but together they are. There's a reason these guys are a successful
powerhouse,
team, and
yeah.
you can see that, like, you can read between the lines even without having seen them really fight together before.
And it was said by what was his name?
Armsmaster?
Yeah, it was said by Armsmaster in the last arc that they had a lot of trouble getting their hands on these guys because they were always out of there or they always beat them in a fight.
And a large portion of that is definitely Tattletale's ability, because before we knew Tattletale's ability, Taylor made a line about how information is very important in winning. Like, it is the deciding factor in whether you win or lose a fight, and Tattletale's abilities let her close that gap. And the fact that there's so few information on Tattletale and a Regent gives a built-in disadvantage for other people looking to fight them.
Yeah. And even if, like, you were aware of what Tattletale's ability is, it's really hard to try and outsmart someone who gets, and it's not like she has powers based on pattern, like behavioral patterns. She's like, based on this information that I've just been given, this is the information I don't have. So even if you were trying to outsmart her in a fight and be like, this is what I'd normally do, but this is what I'm going to do now, your body language is going to telegraph that. And she will be able to fill that in right away. So anyway, that is truly something terrifying to have aimed at you.
Oh, and especially in Taylor's situation. But moving away from that quickly, in the earlier, like the first chapter, we get some kind of throwaway dialogue between Danny and Taylor, implying some things more about their relationship. But we also get some dropout lines of Uber and Leet, the video game themed characters, who are barely B-list villains, who one of the dock workers has gone to work as a mook for, and they were making jokes about that guy being made to wear funny costumes in bright primary colors.
I love that. Like, it's a sense of humor if you're going to be doing super horrible things on the street.
Can you repeat that? Your audio is chopping in and out.
I said at least have some, like, a sense of humor if you're going to be doing horrible things on the street.
Yeah, and I think it also provides that it's not just terrible gangs and things on the street. It is also Mad Hatter, Joker-like supervillains that are just out to have, like, a good time and use their superpowers to do not quite legal things, and in the form of being nerdy and having a video game theme. Hello, we're back. Had some technical difficulties, but let's just jump right back into it. I don't quite remember what we were talking about, so I'm just going to move on. Like, I know where we were. I think we were talking about the birdcage in the parahuman prison.
We were.
And the implication that they have a prison just for superpowered villains makes sense. I wouldn't want to keep regular prisoners in lines with people like Lung. That feels like a recipe for disaster. Must be some prison to hold a bunch of superpowered people and have them stay there.
Which also implies that they have the technology to dampen abilities to some extent.
Maybe. We don't really know anything about the birdcage yet in the story other than a brief mention. Some other smaller things that we learned in the chapter. There's a brief mention of a form of technology that Taylor hadn't seen before, TIVO.
Or a TiVo.
A TiVo. We don't know what that means yet, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, she mentioned that she saw it. Well, she mentioned it in League with the devices connected to the TV, but I doubt it's
I
has something
assume
to do with that.
I assume it's an electronic device of some sort that she just hasn't seen before, but interesting enough to bring it up since I didn't recognize it either. Uh, but Taylor accepts the Undersiders' invitation to join their group on the pretenses that she will eventually betray them and give all their information over to Armsmaster. Predictions on the chances that that actually happens?
I really don't think it's going to.
Okay.
I think she is so desperate for friends that it was either join this villain group and become friends with them, or join the wards and be the spider lady.
And maybe be friends with the wards. We haven't met any of the wards.
No.
But we go back to their home base where she sort of gets settled. We learn a couple bits about Tattletale's superpower, which scares Taylor to death for the moment because Lisa introduces her power like she's omniscient and can know everything and anything, which is hilarious. And I think the way she reacted, I'm worried about anything Taylor does right now might feed Lisa's ability.
I feel that Taylor needs to go back to the front she was putting on really when she first met them, and like what she does with the bullies, and like, you're safer if you say nothing.
But I feel like that also won't work for Taylor's situation. It might work to emotionally distance herself the right way that she needs to turn them over, but she is in desperate needs of friends and communication, and you don't just stop talking to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as she's sitting there, she gets attacked as Rachel comes back with her dogs. Rachel voted no for Taylor to join the group, and it doesn't seem like Rachel really likes much of anything, much less new things entering her territory. So Rachel attacks with her dogs and doesn't stop until Brian straight up punches her in the nose and sends her flat. Then she calls her dogs off, and Taylor has this moment where she is reflexively backing down because of all the times she's been bullied, and that's what she does. And she's rationalizing why it's smarter that she should back down, and she does not find a reason. So she sprints across the room and soccer kicks Rachel in the head. And then when Rachel covers her head, stomps her in the ear and like clips it hard enough that Rachel will eventually get stitches for that. And feels betrayed, even though she has no right to feel betrayed, because the whole time she's been there, she's been thinking about ways to betray this group. She storms out and is like, I'm not doing this. I was attacked once. Clearly, I did actually see these people as growing friends. That is why I feel so hurt right now. I'm leaving. Bye.
Which is an interesting position to be in, with, especially since that was something that I totally kind of would have seen coming, with all of the talk that we've already gotten of like Rachel and her disposition.
Yeah, but I feel that at the same time, Taylor was rightfully justified, I think, to be surprised if they had talked about her joining the group. And Rachel said no. They did not inform her that when Rachel says no, she says no with her dogs.
With some teeth and flair.
Yeah. So she had some reason to be angry. I don't think she had any reason to feel betrayed at all.
And that was something she admitted herself.
Yeah, she's like, I just like these people, and I'm gonna continue to like these people. She's earlier she's like, I need to keep my two worlds separate because what is the point of escapism if they start to blur together? And I think one Taylor having no friends, being in school, and then her super villain at this point persona having cool friends, being rich, having a better lifestyle. I think we're about to see some balances, some scales tip in the favor of, she's going to convince herself that she's not actually a supervillain. And she's going to be a supervillain.
I'm kind of cheering for that.
I am kind of
in this fictional world.
But I'm kind of cheering for that because we get a glimpse at the interlude into the new wave heroes that are around the same age as Taylor, Victoria and Amy, or Glory Girl and Panacea, respectively, a guy who did terrible things and absolutely deserves whatever he's getting. But they are also the heroes, and Victoria throws him around like a rag doll to the point where multiple times she's afraid she killed him, and she continues to do it. She straight up kicks a garbage can at his head, which is great. But it's pretty clear that what she's doing is A, definitely illegal, and B, just not that heroic in general. She is doing this to just hurt him.
Yeah. It's that wrong things for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Where she feels she's justified.
And I think that paints, once more we see the villains be chill and joke with each other, and we see the heroes be chill and joke with each other casually over a man they've convinced that he is now impotent on the part of Panacea, laughing and like, oh, Amy, I thought you were gonna mess with heads. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. We just horribly scarred a man for life. Ha ha ha. I mean, he deserved it, but ha ha ha.
I also find it funny how this author is kind of sticking with a theme, because it talked early in the arc about how in the first fight between Lung and Taylor in her bug persona, she had sent some venomous spiders to some sensitive areas, if you know what I'm saying. And they alluded to in the chapter the fact that, brown recluse bites, which he had several in said sensitive areas, like literally cause necrosis to flesh. And so they were like, said sensitive areas probably have ceased to exist at this point.
I mean, Lisa straight up full cackling tells Taylor, who is none the wiser at this point to this fact, that, he's gonna be sitting down to use the bathroom from here on out. Which is the joy she gets from breaking this to Taylor is amazing. But let's move away from the sort of recap and talk about the characters. First, let's re-up our opinions on Taylor.
I really wanted her to stick up for herself and like stick to her guns a little bit, but not in exactly the way she did it. I wanted her to defend herself verbally, give a couple of FUs, and then maybe parkour the heck out of there. Instead, she let them walk all over her at school and then took that anger out on Rachel, who deserved it a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
I also don't think that Rachel would have taken a verbal lashing from Taylor. I think Rachel is the type of, like, she doesn't respond to Gru telling her to stop until he punches her. So I think violence might just be the way Rachel solves and deals with problems.
And the fact that Gru had to say, like, I hate when you make me do this is kind of like, I've had to do this more than once to get you to stop.
Oh, which does make some sense. And going more into Taylor, the way she sort of thinks about things is so interesting. Because the way she thinks about things is the same no matter the situation, but like the verbiage she uses referring to others and herself changes whether she's being a villain. She even like calls it out. She's like, no, I'm not just Taylor as a supervillain. I put Lung, whether I meant to or not, in a hospital. I'm a badass.
Which I'm like, go for you, find your power. But it, like I said, I was just hoping it was not in that way.
We all hope that Taylor would find her power not in supervillainy, straight away. I mean, I know she's doing it because she's spying, but I think we've both come to the apt conclusion that that may be more to delude herself, like as a justification for why she's doing this, rather than a real thing she's actually going to follow through on.
I agree. And she was a little starstruck by that money too, so yeah. I think that might present some issues.
And I think Taylor is really good at justifying why she does certain things to herself. But another thing I wanted to talk about was Mr. Gladly. You can't see this right now, but Cassidy just put her hand on her temple and did like a full meditative sigh. You can hear it now in the background, her deep breathing to calm the building rage. But Mr. Gladly offers Taylor, being like, hey, I know you're being bullied. Do you want to go to the principal and vice principal and talk to them about it? And Taylor sort of shoots back, that will not do anything. You're going to make them miss a couple days of school, and then they will come back with a vengeance. And so she declines, and apparently Mr. Gladly offered this earlier in the year, so this is her second time declining him doing anything. And she gets bullied right outside his classroom, and he walks up, meets her dead in the eye.
He
makes
saw it. He heard it.
Eye contact, and he leaves. I don't care if someone turns you down a million times for help. You are a teacher. That is your student. It is your direct responsibility at that point to interfere. No matter if she said it will make it worse, you do something there.
And I'm also hoping, because it has been said that Mr. Gladly is like the cool teacher. I am hoping that he like kind of gets revenge in like a creative, popular kid kind of way, because there's nothing
that
than
too. But I think the story is setting up a reason for Taylor to hate and mistrust authority figures.
I do too, and it's the unfortunate.
I don't think Mr. Gladly is going to redeem himself in our eyes anytime soon, because I don't care if Taylor turned him down forever. That was wrong. That was
especially since it's so clear what they were doing.
It was against the moral responsibility as yourself as a person, much less your position as a teacher.
A teacher. Could you imagine if you were getting picked on in the hallway and a teacher walked away from you?
At that point, I think I would be like, okay, whatever. I'm going to lay down on the floor now. Whatever. You guys keep going.
Which is kind of what she did. She just up and left without her backpack and the book that she decided she needed to pay for, which is not a problem anymore.
And I think we have, Taylor, the more she does this, is finding easier and more excuses and ways to skip school, the more she leans into her life of villainy, and I think that will be a continuing pattern we might want to look out for. But, oh my god, the shit that Emma pulls. We're reading Worm together, so I got to read that section out loud and then take a break for a minute to contemplate the horrific implications of Emma's personality flaws there.
I don't even know what has happened to prompt this, because there has to be something to prompt this level of bullying. It doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Something happened in the week that Taylor was gone at nature camp, right?
Yeah, it had to be, but we don't know that, and I don't think Taylor does either.
I don't think Taylor has definitely identified that there's a huge change in Emma's personality, but I don't think she's identified that something like an event happened and that changed how Emma behaved.
Yeah, Taylor is probably rationalizing as, wow, Emma just became a real bitch.
As part of our prediction segment, what do you think that where are they going with the way Emma's personality seems to do such a big 180?
Two things that I am considering. One of them is the one I'm praying for, but it's so wildly unlikely, is that somebody else has an ability that seems to have like some sort of sway over Emma's personality. So wildly unlikely. That's been a year and a half of constant torment, and Emma seems to be the ringleader. But it's just, I'm hoping for a little redemption on Emma's part, because it's just hard to imagine that anyone could be that horrible. And then honestly, I think that the other one is that Emma fell in with a couple popular kids, because I think it was Sophia that
Sophia.
She started hanging out with while Taylor was away at like nature camp.
I will interject,
and I think that they
here. It is implied in Taylor talking to Emma that Emma already had that popular kid status. She was already cool. She just hung out with Taylor as well, and was a decent human being on top of being cool, which is, just if you want to be cool, also be cool in the personality sense of that word. Advice for any listeners out there.
Yeah, like one of my least favorite tropes is the bitchy cheerleader, because almost all of the cheerleaders I have met are kind and involved with sports and volunteer, but that's just kind of what our school expects from them. And so you're gonna be cool and popular.
But so the two theories
power
right
comes
now is that Emma's is being affected by a power that has sort of degraded her personality, or something happened with her meeting Sophia or Madison, the other two girls that we know are
Mm-hmm.
involved. We haven't gotten much on the other two not because I don't think they're not important, but I think that Taylor is hyper-focused on Emma. It might not even totally be that Emma is the actual ringleader of that group. It could just be that Taylor identifies her as the ringleader of that group because Emma knows so much about her that she takes the head in tormenting her. She knows what will get to her.
Mm-hmm. She
So
knows all those personal touches,
yeah,
like
so outside of Taylor, she might not be the dominant personality of the group. We just we are limited outside of interludes to Taylor's perspective, and that perspective has made Emma the big bad guy of the bullying group for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if those interludes are going to stay parallel in timeline, or are they going to split off and give us like flashback segments?
They might. We will see in the future. But moving on from Taylor, who shows once again that she can be ruthlessly violent in this chapter. When she's fighting, she takes every advantage, every little weakness you show, like she grasps onto and tears it open, which is helped by her observance. I imagine how creepy it would be on the receiving end of Taylor fighting you, because she's self-defined very quiet, so she's not quipping like Lisa or Alec might when fighting you. She just
And
like
it's already established that her costume is kind of edgy, and
kind
she
of
throws
creepy.
spiders at you. There's no way to not be kind of creeped by that.
You are horrified by Taylor, even if she was the most like it would almost have it be more creepy if she was happy and sunshiny during a fight and just sent wasps at your face.
Like, let me sting you in the eyeballs and use spiders to bite off your dick. Like,
To be granted, that is sort of the only way her power can be effective, is if she is ruthless in that manner. Because it is a thing of like her power is not overt. It doesn't make her any physically stronger. She's been training, but all she can do is control these bugs, and that's what she sticks to, and she's good at it. We get a little more on her power this chapter as well, on how she can hear and sense things through her bugs, but they get distorted because of the way bugs interpret a vision, and it hurts her to take in too much of that. So she usually relies on the bug's touch sets, which is still distorted, but enough and clear enough that she can use it reliably. And that's how she gathers information. But moving on to, I think we'll continue to do updating opinions on the Undersiders first, because they're going to be our recurring sort of main side cast. Let's start with Gru, otherwise known as Brian, who seems to have been set up as a potential love interest.
yeah, when we already discussed how she kind of introduced Alec as like a pretty boy, and then immediately was like, but I'm not attracted to people like that. But Gru, or Brian, she was like,
Cassidy just made finger guns at the camera.
I did. That she did the hey, yeah, totally my type. You know what I'm saying? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like,
but I don't know if Taylor is fully aware that she's totally like eyeing up Brian right away. That might just be her subconscious being like, that is an attractive dude.
And it's an attractive dude that gave her positive attention, and like,
she's gotten so few positive attention. Like, she's probably gonna be besties with Lisa by the end of the day.
Yeah, and
Brian
that's the thing is,
and Alec
like,
following close.
Lisa likely won't see it like that, because like there's, you know, that happens where your best friend is they're like not actually best friends with you.
They're also supervillains, and we don't know
yeah,
the interaction that they have with the outside world. Lisa and Alec have permanent rooms and so does Rachel, in the Undersiders hideout. Brian doesn't. He has an apartment. So that implies that Brian has an outside life, but perhaps Lisa, Alec, and Rachel are more fully immersed in villainy.
we also did see that friendly interaction that Lisa had with the artist couple on the street as they were walking back.
This is also the people that they hang around, though.
That is true.
So they probably know everyone who lives on that street just for security reasons. And Lisa strikes me as the person who smiles and waves and is friends with everyone, if only because her power lets her know what to say, probably to like make a person feel more comfortable.
That that would be super helpful. And
I
that comes along with the reading body language thing.
I desperately want a Lisa interlude already because it would let us know how her power feeds information to her.
Yeah, one of these times. And
Eventually.
I would love an interlude for all of those characters.
I can say that the interludes range far and wide, but we do, I think, eventually get an interlude for pretty much every single one of the Undersiders to get a glimpse of their point of view. But back to Gru. What do we think of? Let's refer to them by civilian names, since that's what I'm doing for Taylor. What do we think about Brian? For me, he seems to be the more serious one. Alec mentions that he made everyone take medical courses, and he's weirdly straight-laced for a villain, right?
Yeah, he definitely gave all of the information like right away to Taylor and was like, "Here's my name. Meet us without masks. That was my idea." Like all of that.
I think what's also funny is that everyone else probably had so much less risk than him in that. If he has an outside life and Alec, Lisa, and Rachel don't, there's no risk for them flaunting their identities. For Brian, who might have a life like Taylor, he's the one putting his risk on the line, his life on the line, which might be the reason that he had to be the one to put out that idea to get anyone to say yes.
Yeah. And it also like that makes his coin of trustworthiness, as he put it, like his show of like, we trust you, you should trust us, that much more effective in his favor, which I don't think Taylor would rationalize, but like from our perspective, it is.
Yes. I don't know if Brian's fully realized the implications of his either. They are both teenagers, and we don't know how calculating Brian is. He didn't seem all that calculating. He seemed like the sort who's good at risk assessment. So maybe he did make the risk assessment and go, this is such a grandiose gesture, they'll at least take a bite of the bait, because who wouldn't?
Mm-hmm. And there's also like, he was, the main compliments he dealt to Taylor were like, wow, no one actually looks at it seriously like that, or like, wow, that was really smart of you.
Yeah, impressed
when she talks about her. Yeah,
impressed with her I think Taylor has a philosophy on heroics in line with what Brian's philosophy is on committing acts of villainy.
Yeah.
Which is
calculated.
A very small Venn diagram in the middle, but Taylor and Brian have met in that middle. And Taylor's currently being dragged into the other side of the Venn diagram. Not even really dragged, merrily skipping.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna fight it all that much,
She's
honestly.
Swan diving into the other side of that Venn diagram of good and bad capes. But, like, do we like Brian as a character? What's our opinion on him so far?
Brian seems like a swell guy, aside from the whole probably hurt people thing.
He's a super villain. We have to remember that outside, he's also a supervillain who's committed major heists and did bank robberies and things when he was small time. So, I mean, his power's also perfect for that. If it messes with radio signals, it would like jam cameras. He could walk into a bank, blind everyone, steal the money, and leave.
Yeah, because and most banks have like a panic button, and his ability would also be able to clog that. So like they'd really not be able to call for help.
But it is implied he didn't know about that ability until Lisa told him with hers, which I think is a good switching point to talk about Lisa, aka Tattletale, the vixen supervillainess who is behind a large portion of the Undersiders' success.
But not the boss.
But not the boss. Those are separate entities. Her power is terrifying, and she flaunts it like it's no tomorrow. Probably because if you had that power, why would you not? I get her, like, and she's already mischievous, so Why would you not be like, oh yes, I could look at the clock, but instead I'm going to look you straight in the eye and tell you the time down to the millisecond.
And it's also really interesting because you would be able to glean a lot more information if you dealt it like that. Like, what does your body language tell me based on me letting you know that I can pretty much find out anything? Are you nervous? Why are you nervous? Fill that in for me, please, Powers.
It's so interesting. I don't know if she can ask for things from her powers or if they just fill in a blank if she's asking about it. I don't know if Lisa knows or not about Taylor. There's no way to tell, and she's mischievous and sort of has the same sort of grin on her face the whole time that there is no good way to like pin down what she's thinking. Uh, but what was our thoughts on Lisa as a character? She's the mischievous type. She thinks she knows it all because she probably kind of does.
And you already also mentioned how her ability might be helpful to know like what to say to make a person feel comfortable, which we kind of saw that with the first interactions between her and Taylor. Is Taylor already likes Lisa and already was like, I appreciated that hug. This girl is cool. Like, so I
Yeah,
definitely think she's taken that road.
I think she's a little older than Taylor. That's what we get. She's, I think, taking on the role of like a big sister mentor type to fill in a missing link that maybe her power did tell her that like Taylor is having a rough time in her social life. Uh, and
Could you
she's just
imagine just
filling in
being
that
like,
role.
because like the power did like tell her that like in the first arc that Taylor was shy,
Yeah,
not like
that's why
injured or
she's not
anything.
talking.
Yeah. So we know that her abilities give her insight into stuff like that. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if she only got like, ooh, having a rough time or like being bullied? Like, and it would leave you to wonder how is this badass bug girl getting picked on? Like, I don't.
Yeah, and I think without the costume, they probably get a little more insight into why and how Taylor is doing things because Lisa's in the room the whole time that Rachel fight happens. She sees her hesitate, her do the deep breath thing, and then soccer kick Rachel in the head.
Which
And her powers, she probably went, why did that happen? Why did I just witness that? And her power's like, here is all the juicy secrets. Maybe. We don't know how her power works in detail.
and it would also be interesting if because another potential like track is Lisa knows exactly what Rachel's intentions are, but also knows the other side of the spectrum that we've been talking about that or not Rachel, that Taylor. So Lisa knows exactly what Taylor's intentions are. I said Rachel on accident. Exactly knows what Taylor's intentions are, what she intends to do with the information, but also knows the other side of the spectrum that Taylor doesn't have many friends, will be easily manipulated into joining and actually like finding your groove here.
And Lisa's
And
confident. She seems confident enough in herself and her abilities to be like, I can make this socially awkward girl need our company enough that
yeah, essentially indoctrinate her.
she's not gonna proselyte. We're assuming a lot of Lisa's power making her an evil mastermind, which she could be, but we don't know enough to really make those assumptions. I really like Lisa as a character. She makes me laugh. She says funny things. Has good comedic timing. Wildbow got across, I think, all of their personalities fairly well. And the one
Yeah.
I think we should move next to is Rachel, or Bitch. Oh boy, does she do so much in this chapter for the little time that she appears in it. Kind of changing the whole way that Taylor sees the group a bit, just quickly throwing dynamics up in the air. It is quite interesting. What did you think of Rachel this chapter, Cassidy?
Like I've already said, I really, really hope she kind of turns around her act and is like power of friendship. But I honestly doubt that will happen. I want it to very, very badly.
Rachel seems pretty set in her ways.
Yeah. And it's especially hard like when we know the background of Rachel, foster system, which inherently instills some trust issues, and then homeless for the majority of her villain career. So she is ruthless and willing to do anything to ensure she gets the biggest cut possible, which is why she didn't want Taylor to be part of the group.
Yeah, and I like the little tidbit that Taylor calls her dogs freakish brutes, and she kind of just mutters to the side, they're not freakish, little grumpily.
Like, they're brutes, but
they're dogs. Angry dogs, but they're my dogs, right?
I also like the tidbit it gave, like, Rachel's abilities have the power to mutate any dog like that. But those 3 dogs are her dogs because they are trained well enough to, even in the excitement of everything, be able to focus and listen.
Yeah. And we didn't get much more in depth on Rachel. She's aggressive, she's violent, and she takes out her anger before thinking about it. But she's also the brute force of the team. She is their powerhouse fighter, and the team would not be as successful without her in full force fights. Despite all of the bad things she did, I do still like Rachel. Maybe not as a person, but as a character. I am all right with her. I like the way she is written. I am also biased, having read more of the book, and I know more about the Undersiders. I don't dislike any of the Undersiders. Full Q.
I mean, and it's really hard to dislike teenagers. Especially when you see positives in their character, because you're like, what chain of events led them there? With adults, you're like, okay, greedy bastard, like, I see why you're here. But with teenagers, like, why do you feel the desperation to need to make up to $35,000 per job? I don't know.
And it is fairly obvious that we know a little bit of Taylor's tragic backstory, not even the full extent of it, and we can sympathize with her fairly easily. And even with all her her justification. If I cannot speak today, I will use a different word. But like, we understand that those tragic backstories have to be there for all the other people too.
Yeah, there's a motivation, especially for kids that young, to be involved.
Yeah, these are teenagers. Alec is younger than Taylor. Lisa is older. Brian is same age or older, and I think Rachel is same age or older.
Yeah, and I don't know much about like how powers manifest, but so far the only example we've seen seemed to be a pretty dramatic moment in Taylor's life. And so I'm wondering if that has to be a similar theme with.
And at the end of this podcast show, we're going to look into playing Weaver Dice, the tabletop RPG for board. So I'm going to spoil a bunch of world building things for Cassidy, and it's going to be caught on camera because I'm just going to list them out to her. We'll do that at the end of this show, though, and I'm not going to describe them super in depth.
I'm so ready.
But the final Undersider we have to talk about is Regent, otherwise known as Alec, the one that there is zero information, despite the fact that he lives full-time there and is obviously a full-time supervillain. There was nothing on him at all, which seems suspicious.
There's also his ability is to affect nervous system, but I don't know if that's all only physical. Because if you had the ability to affect, someone's memory, it'd be pretty easy to erase record of yourself. Maybe. Especially when those can be seen as flukes of a fight or pumps of adrenaline or easily explained away as like getting hit or bumped.
It is implied that Alec's nerve manipulation power is fairly low. He can make you trip. He can make you lose your sense of balance momentarily. He can make you pull the trigger on a gun if your hand's there. He can make your fingers move. Make you involuntarily like twitch and fidget and have your muscles spasm in ways that they shouldn't. And that is what we got out of his powers. Out of his personality, he's definitely the little brother type in the gang.
Let's order pizza.
And then everyone groans. We've had pizza every night for a week. Alex, shut up. We're getting something different without saying any words. He takes up the full couch the whole time.
Which I live in a fairly I have like 5 siblings in the house right now. That is such a sibling thing to do. Be like, there's room over there. No, there isn't. There's 5 other people sitting. I'm not going to squeeze in. Move your legs.
And then he trips Brian when he's coming back from putting the medical supplies away to demonstrate his power, and then makes fun of him, like, goofing up in front of the new girl. I think if Brian and Taylor are still, we assume, oblivious to the romantic tension that has already begun, Alec is full stop not.
He's shipping it.
He already is, like,
yeah.
looking at them and being like, looking at Lisa, and they're making a silent bet between themselves of how long it's going to take. Lisa's going to win the bet, but I mean, they're doing it.
And it's already been established that they do bet.
All the time, apparently, because Alec gets easily suckered into bets. Also, they have a lot of money to gamble with.
Which money loses its weight after so much of it.
So, yeah, when he lost the bet to Lisa in the beginning of whether or not Taylor would come in costume, he hands over a wad of cash, not like a couple dollar bills. He full up tosses her like a tennis ball of money.
Which at first I imagine in like a bunch of crumpled dollar bills, like pocket change that he just like shoved in his sweatshirt. But like after a little bit of introduction, like no, I'm sure that it was like a stack of 20s crisply rolled. Like
I'm sure. I like that when Taylor gets handed the $2,000, the first thing she focuses on is the lunchbox. She thinks the gift is the lunchbox at first. She's like, "Oh, this is an Alexandria lunchbox. Is it collectible?" And Lisa goes, "Oh my god, open it!"
And that was the moment everyone was like, "She's a dork." Oh no.
The first, and then we walk into the Undersiders. A little more on Alec, I think. A little more laid back social wise, because he is the one who reveals that they voted and that Rachel said no. And he's also the one who's like, "You're such a dork," when Taylor's like, "I'm jealous of your guys' group," after she agreed to join it. He, like, just looks at her for a second and goes, "Why? You're a dork, just why?" Walks away.
And also, like, when she, like, because she dressed in clothing that didn't quite suit her, was self-conscious about it, made her way down the ladder, made kind of a show of her being self-conscious about her face when taking off her mask and putting on her glasses. And his first reaction was just to roll his eyes.
So what are our opinions of Alec? He hasn't done anything to make a bad impression yet, so...
I think it's one of those things where he's a dweeb, but like to protect himself, he's like, haha, what a dweeb.
I would also agree that he is a dweeb. We know he likes art. He painted the doors in the Undersiders hangout. He's also the one that we have hobbies and other side things for outside of supervillainy.
Yeah, which we don't actually get for the others.
No, I think Alec has the most clear characterization. Like, if I had to guess, the stack of video game stuff, all the, like, dirty dishes left laissez-fairely out, those are probably his.
And the pizza box was already established to be his.
Brian wouldn't do that. He strikes me as the sort who would clean up his own messes and then be too busy to do actual hobbies outside of supervillainy and his own double life, whatever he does in his civilian life. Lisa strikes me as the sort who wouldn't play computer games because she would find them boring, because she would already know the answers.
Or get a lore dump and just be like, information overload.
She strikes me as the sort who instead, she straight up tells us this, spies on the Protectorate and the wards as if she's watching a soap opera. Because her power, it fills in the team politics. So it's like, if I'm missing anything, my power will tell me and I can just watch the show that must be the wards.
To be like, ooh, romantic tension? Where did that come from? They did what? Nope, never mind. I want that out of my brain.
I didn't want to know. Knowing Lisa, though, she would be like, instead of I didn't want to know, be like, ooh, tell me more.
Definitely. And Rachel seems like the type of person to chuck the Wii remote at the TV out of frustration. So.
And then have her dog eat the TV. And then sit on the TV like he owns the TV now.
You are describing my dog.
I might be. I might be projecting like on Rachel's dogs a little bit. who is Cassidy's sassy little dog. Not even little, sassy big dog.
So sassy. She's a big dog.
But that moves us away from the Undersiders. Let's go into the interlude characters that we got. Victoria and Amy. Victoria, otherwise known as Glory Girl, and Amy, otherwise known as Panacea. We didn't get their powers full stated, but Glory Girl can clearly fly, has super strength, has some sort of shield protecting her that seems to make her practically invulnerable. She is the Superman type character, but Superman, if he was really spiteful. That's how I would define.
Self-righteous. So self-righteous.
And she has a secondary ability to her that she describes using a lot that we didn't get a full, well, we did get a full description of. It gives awe and like excitement to people around her and like makes them like her, and to her enemies it makes them intimidated. And it is implied that she uses her power all the time because Amy's like, it's been used so much on me, I'm immune.
Which is horrible coming from someone who is referred to as her sister, like her actual sister.
That has some horrifying implications that are just like, brushed aside as like a quip. But let's talk about Amy's powers. Panacea is a healer. She has access to all of your biology, seemingly as long as she's touching you. And not just heal, can seemingly manipulate it however she wants.
And
these two siblings have very powerful, not directly related, but these two sisters have very powerful abilities at their hands. But they have some deep personality flaws that we see displayed in Victoria's reckless use of her power and Amy's willingness to go along with it, and willingness to be like, roll her eyes, put up a show of, I'm not going to do what you're saying, but she's done this 6 other times. So,
and can we also talk about the fact that Victoria, because it's already been established that most heroes and villains get to kind of name themselves. Who picks the name Glory Girl for themselves? That is such like a prideful thing to do. They're like, who are you? I'm Glory Girl.
I cannot wait until we get to the chapter where we get all of the list of all the wards and superhero names. I cannot wait for that. But we will get there eventually.
There's going to be so many bad ones.
We will go through the list of all the wards and our opinions on them after we get that chapter. I know there's one that we're going to laugh at together. And I know there's another that we're also going to laugh at together. Because teenage boys naming themselves and teenage girls naming themselves for the limited name pool is not a great thing. And I think Wildbow's really good at naming things, and he's also good at giving characters that need kind of shitty names because that fits their personality. What we learned of Victoria is she has a good, such a self-righteous opinion of herself. She straight up is like, I am competent and gorgeous, and I have an outfit that shows me off. And my sister, Amy, well, her outfit might as well be a burqa.
Yeah, what a prude. Even though, and kind of insulted Amy and was like, she looks plain, which I don't like.
She has such a self-inflated sense of worth that it's definitely not out of what we know of Victoria to have picked that name for herself, and we only have gotten to know her through an interlude. Another thing that's talked about, they're part of a non-government affiliated group called New Wave, and their civilian identities are public. Public information, which is different from the Protectorate and obviously most supervillains.
Yeah. And I don't know if that makes me trust her more or less.
Clearly. We see less.
Her specifically less. But I feel like that was like at least a ploy to be like, look, we're being 100% transparent with the public. When in reality...
We will get... they are tracking down a goon for Empire 88 to interrogate him for some information. In case it wasn't clear, Empire 88 is a group of skinheads, racists. Basically the scum of the earth. They are led by a guy called Kaiser. He does have a power. He's parahuman. And we start to see the after effects of Taylor taking out Lung, what it's going to do. And the way the bad guy phrases this, I think, is the way the Mook phrases this, I think, is the best. He's basically goes, either way, no matter what happens to do with the dock territory, the good guys lose. Because either there is a war fighting over it, or the villains ally in the negotiations for it. Both of those options are bad for the heroes. If the villains war, so many civilians die. Maybe even some heroes die. If they ally over it, holy shit, like half of the villains in the city have just allied over a single space of territory. They're so much more organized and terrifying. We don't get the name of the organization, but we get a leader named Coil, who is a leader of a group of advanced mercenaries using very expensive technology that are fighting Empire 88 over territory. And I mean, honestly, go Coil. I'm rooting for you. Take out Emperor 88.
Yeah, and can we talk about how Empire 88, the leader is called Kaiser, which is the German word for emperor?
That was definitely purposeful.
100%, but like, I just needed to point that out because...
Yeah, and so Amy and Victoria mess with this Mook's head for a bit, and he gives them the information on what's going to happen with the dock territory. Whether we like it or not, this is indirectly Taylor's fault. Whatever happens.
Yeah.
She took
which
out,
is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate because she was trying to do a good thing in taking out Lung to protect people she didn't know didn't need protection, but she's trying to do a good deed and
then instead created a power vacuum.
And almost killed Lung. His heart stopped 3 times.
And he lost his junk. Which I think is going to be a pattern, because when they were messing with the goon, they were like, we can just not heal that part of your injury.
But I think it's implied that that wasn't actually the injury he received. That was Amy just completely destroying his mind. Which, I mean, she healed him. She healed him pretty much fully, gave him some numbness in his toes to back up her diagnosis, and then let him go. So I think I'm more behind Amy's way of torturing Mooks than Victoria's.
But then hinted at the fact that psychologically, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If he believes he can't get it up, he won't be able to get it up.
But I am not inclined to feel sympathetic with him.
No, I'm not at all. He should not be able to procreate. Go, Amy, you're fixing it. But
if she had actually done it, I don't think I'd feel any worse about Amy than I do now. The fact that she just did it psychologically makes me like her a little bit more than I like Victoria, which wasn't hard, because Victoria is unappealing in the right ways. She has these Supergirl-like powers that could fit her up to be a very Mary Sue-esque character, and these glaring personality flaws that help balance them out.
Yeah, especially in instances where she's trying to convince Amy that her powers would be better suited if Amy did tamper with the mind, which I think is a completely justified limit for a power set. I'm not going to mess with brains.
I think it's terrifying that she doesn't have that limit built into her power already. And Amy must have some strong willpower to be like, even if I could do things and change things, I'm not going to touch that. But I know later on we'll get an interlude from Amy's point of view. So I am already more inclined to like her. Because I remember her interlude very, very well.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't remember a lot of the book very, very well, so she stuck out.
I also feel that, there's a theme being introduced at this point of, these powers are a slippery slope once you get started on them. Because Taylor already touched on how if she used her abilities on her bullies, she doesn't think she'd be able to stop. Amy touched on how that was not a slope she was going to fall. And Victoria clearly showed what happened when you fall to that slippery slope.
Victoria did not fall to that slippery slope. She
climbed, dove in.
She didn't even just dive in. She double, quadruple somersaulted, backflipped off of a diving board, off of the slippery slope, and into the morally blackish pool below.
The way you phrase that makes me want to take that dive.
Please don't.
the pretty sights on the way down. But the problem is she mentally manipulated the judges to give her 10 out of 10, which we're not inclined to.
I mean, this metaphor is already collapsing. But with that collapsing, Cassidy, why don't you give your final thoughts on the episode while I pull up the information I'm going to spoil for you?
I overall, this arc was posed so many morally challenging points. It started with the bullying and the lack of the intervention by authority, which is frustrating as it begins. And then the beginning of Taylor really like showing us that there might not be a reason for her to be a good guy. It might just turn into her going with her friends, with which the group that was introduced with us, I think will be super easy for her. And that's where I think it's going to head from here.
I think Taylor is joining Glory Girl down that slippery slope, which will be, I think, probably one of the first character arcs we might bear witness to. But anyway, I am going to first talk to you about the power classification system in Worms. So the Protectorate, you've already been vaguely introduced to Tinker, but they have a bunch of others to classify. So I will go down the list. I'm on the Parahumans wiki if anyone is interested. So the first one we'll talk about is Mover, an ability that enhances mobility is what it's defined as. Shaker, an ability with an area of effect. Brute, an ability that enhances strength or durability. Breaker, an ability that allows the cape to shift into another state. Master, an ability that allows the cape to control others or create minions. Tinker, an ability that allows the cape to create or alter devices with futuristic technology. Blaster, a ranged offensive ability. Thinker, an ability that focuses on information gathering. Striker, an ability that is melee ranged or touch-based. Changer, an ability that allows the cape to alter their forms or appearance. Trump, an ability that allows the cape to manipulate powers in some capacity. And Stranger, an ability that focuses on stealth or infiltration. Before we move on, I want to play a quick game of Guess That Category, since they haven't outright told us yet. What do we think Taylor is?
Ooh.
I'll put a countdown on.
I can't remember which classification was the one that affect people or create minions.
Master. And ding,
Master.
ding, ding. That is correct. Taylor is a master classification. I will also let you in on a secret. Powers can have more than one classification. So Glory Girl would probably be a mix of a couple of these. So next, let's go right down the list. What is Rachel or bitch?
I think she's also master.
Ding, ding, ding. You would be right. What is Tattletale?
Thinker, because of the information gathering part.
Oh, you are on a roll. It's only gonna get harder. What is Gru?
He is, I don't remember what the classification was called, but area effect. Shaker. I think he's Shaker.
I don't actually know off of the top of my head what Gru is, because it's really easy to keep track of everyone else, but I don't know Gru's power set, so I'm going to look that up right now.
Ten-second dance party for myself, because I think 3 out of 3.
You're doing really well. But Gru is a shaker and a stranger. So you got it right.
So
ding, ding, ding. I'll give you it both. Now we have Regent. What do we think he is?
I don't know.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
He's also a master. Most of the Undersiders are masters, because masters don't just create minions, they can control others, and that's part of his ability.
Yep, that makes sense.
But the other thing I'm going to spoil for you, which is sort of the bigger deal, I'm not going to tell you any spoilers that go along with it, but the way people get their powers, or at least somewhat connected to them, is an event I've mentioned vaguely offhandedly, not on the show, but in other locations, called trigger events, which is the way you get your power, or the event of which it manifests. Usually not great, and that's all I'm going to really share with you on camera about trigger events. But other than that, that ends the tiny bit of spoilers we're doing for the Weaver Dice, and that also ends our review of Arc 2. Any last thoughts?
OMG. I can't come up with anything other than, oh my god. Yeah,
that's probably fair. Well, thank you. This was an episode of Anecdotal Adventures. I am Ashley.
I'm Cassidy, and remember to stay inspired.
Okay. The listeners will hopefully get right to that. And we will see you guys next time.